For almost 90 years, one railway has carried the weight of a nation. It runs the entire length of Vietnam, from the capital, Hanoi in the north, to Ho Chi Minh City in the south, on a single ribbon of track barely a meter wide. The French laid the first rails in 1899. The line was finished in 1936. And on that slow, narrow spine, a journey from one end of the country to the other still takes more than 30 hours. Now Vietnam has decided to bury that past in concrete and steel. The government has approved a brand new high-speed railway, roughly 1,541 kilometers long, about 957 miles, built for trains that can run at 350 kilometers per hour, around 217 miles per hour. The price is staggering, about $67 billion. It is the largest single project in the country's history, but money is not the hardest demand. The government wants something rarer. It wants the technology itself, and it has handed the world's biggest train makers a blunt choice: share your secrets or stay out. To understand why Vietnam is willing to spend a fortune, you have to understand the shape of the country itself. Vietnam is long and thin, a coastal sliver curving for more than 1,600 kilometers, roughly 1,000 miles, between two great river deltas. At its narrowest point, it is barely 50 kilometers wide, about 30 miles. The economy is split between two distant poles: Hanoi and the manufacturing heartland of the north, Ho Chi Minh City and the financial engine of the south. Between them lies 1,000 miles of mountains, coastline and rice fields, and one tired railway trying to hold it all together. That railway was a French creation. Colonial engineers began laying track in 1899, and they built it on meter gauge, a narrow standard chosen to save money in difficult terrain. The work took nearly 4 decades. When a locomotive finally ran the full length of the line in 1936, the trip took around 60 hours. The French called it the Trans-Indochinois, and it was the largest single investment they ever made in their Indochinese colony, built to haul rice, rubber, coal, and coffee to the ports. War nearly destroyed it. Decades of conflict tore up the bridges and tunnels, and the line was cut in two for years. After the fall of Saigon in 1975 and the reunification of the country, the new government rebuilt it in a frantic engineering campaign, restoring more than 1,300 bridges and dozens of tunnels in under 2 years. They renamed it the Reunification Express, a symbol of a country stitched back together. It became and remains the backbone of Vietnamese rail. But a backbone built in 1936 cannot carry a modern economy. The line is still a single track of meter gauge, and it is still not electrified. Average speeds hover around 50 kilometers per hour, roughly 30 miles per hour. Across the whole national network of about 2,600 kilometers, almost none of it is double track, and only a tiny fraction runs on the international standard gauge used by the rest of the world. The result is a bottleneck. Passenger trains and freight trains compete for the same single rail, and rail now moves only a sliver of the nation's cargo, because everything else is faster by road. For a country trying to become the world's next great factory floor, that is not a quirk of history, it is a brake on the future. Vietnam tried this once before and lost its nerve. In 2010, the government brought a high-speed rail plan to the National Assembly, the country's parliament. That version leaned on Japanese bullet train technology and carried a price near $56 billion. Lawmakers looked at the figure, weighed it against the size of the economy, and voted it down. The country was not ready, and it could not afford the risk. 14 years of breakneck growth changed math. In November 2024, the same National Assembly approved the project it had once refused. The numbers were bigger than ever. A double-track line on international standard gauge, about 1,541 kilometers long, passing through 20 provinces and cities, with 23 passenger stations and 5 freight stations. A top design speed of 350 kilometers per hour. The travel time between Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City was cut from more than 30 hours to roughly 5. The total cost was put at about $67 billion, making it the most expensive undertaking the country had ever attempted. Here, a single design choice opens the central question of the whole project. Why build a passenger-only line at 350 kilometers per hour, rather than a cheaper, slower line that could also haul freight? The official answer is strategic. Move the passengers onto a fast new line, and the old meter-gauge railway is freed almost entirely for cargo. The new line competes with airplanes for travelers, while the rest of the network can finally specialize in moving goods. It is a bet that splitting the traffic will unlock the whole system at once. Not everyone is convinced. Vietnamese and international experts have warned that a single-phase rollout of this size carries severe financial risk. The projected cost runs to roughly $45 million per kilometer, well above the cost of comparable Chinese lines. Some analysts argue a passenger-only line does little to fix the freight problem that hurts the economy today. And Vietnam's own recent history is a warning. Two urban metro lines, one in Hanoi and one in Ho Chi Minh City, ran years behind schedule with cost overruns reaching billions of dollars. Critics point to that record and ask a hard question. If the country struggled to build two short city lines on time, what happens with 1,000 miles of bullet train? The government's response has been to push harder, not softer. In February 2026, the cabinet issued a directive that Vietnamese media described as reading like a military order, setting firm deadlines for the decade ahead. Construction is to begin no later than December 2026. The Ministry of Construction was told to finalize a complete national body of technical regulations and standards, approaching international best practice, within months. State telecom and technology groups were assigned to master the signaling and control systems themselves. The goal was stated plainly, not just to buy a railway, but to own the knowledge to build it. That demand, share your technology or stay out, is what turned a construction project into a duel. The contract to build the main north-south line has not been awarded to any foreign company. For years, the obvious contenders were China, offering financing and construction as one package, and Japan, offering its proven bullet train and development aid. Spain has entered the talks as well. But Vietnam has signaled it wants to lead the project itself, with public money and domestic firms, rather than hand the keys to any single foreign power. The foreign giants now compete not to own the railway, but to be the ones who teach Vietnam how to make it. Two Vietnamese conglomerates became the vehicles for that competition. The first is VinSpeed, a railway company tied to Vingroup, the country's largest private group. In December 2025, VinSpeed signed a comprehensive strategic partnership and technology transfer agreement with Germany's Siemens Mobility. Siemens would serve as technology partner, supplying its newest high-speed platform, the Velaro Novo, along with the signaling, power, and control systems that make a line run. The chief executive of Siemens Mobility, Michael Peter, called VinSpeed a global frontrunner and described the Velaro Novo as the company's most advanced train, designed for steep gradients and built to use about 30% less energy and carry roughly 10% more passengers than older models. The first targets were not the giant north-south line, but two of VinSpeed's own routes, linking Hanoi toward the coastal region of Quang Ninh and a line in the south toward Can Gio. There was a twist. Just over a week after that signing, Vingroup announced it would withdraw its bid to build the main north-south railway, choosing to concentrate on other national projects it had been awarded. The German partnership remained, but the prize itself stayed open. The second conglomerate is Truong Hai Group Corporation, known as THACO. Its partner is South Korea's Hyundai Rotem. The two had already agreed in 2025 to cooperate on local production of urban and high-speed rolling stock. Then, in April 2026, Hyundai Rotem signed a contract worth around $330 million to supply driverless trains for Ho Chi Minh City Metro Line 2, a 64-kilometer line, about 40 miles with 36 stations. The crucial detail was not the trains, it was the factory. Some of those vehicles will be built in Vietnam at a plant constructed by THACO. They would be the first electric trains ever made on Vietnamese soil. Hyundai Rotem's chief executive, Lee Yong-bae, made clear the company's real ambition reaches far beyond a metro line, toward the north-south high-speed railway itself. Step back, and the shape of the duel is clear. This is not really a fight over who sells the most trains. It is a fight over technology transfer, the slow, deliberate handing down of know-how that lets a developing nation build its own heavy industry. Vietnam is using its enormous spending power as leverage, forcing global leaders to localize, to train, and to manufacture inside its borders. Seen that way, the railway is more than transport. It is an industrial strategy, a deliberate effort to anchor advanced manufacturing, including the electronics and supply chains the world increasingly routes through Vietnam, permanently inside the country. While the world watched the bullet train, Vietnam quietly began building something just as strategic in the north. A web of new standard gauge lines aimed straight at the Chinese border. The flagship runs from the northern border province of Lao Cai through Hanoi to the port of Hai Phong. It stretches about 390 kilometers, roughly 240 miles, carries both passengers and freight, and is built on the same international standard gauge as China's network. Its cost is estimated near $8 billion, financed in part by Chinese loans, and construction broke ground in December 2025. The gauge is the whole point. For more than a century, freight crossing the Vietnam border had to be unloaded from one train and reloaded onto another because Vietnam's meter gauge did not match the standard gauge on the other side. The new lines erased that seam. Two more are planned alongside the first. A double-track route from Hanoi toward the border city of Lang Son, engineered to carry millions of tons of cargo a year, and a coastal line reaching toward Mong Kai. Together, they would let goods roll directly from Vietnamese factories onto the Chinese network, and from there onto the freight trains that run all the way to Europe. This is where the strategy locks together. The north-south bullet train pulls passengers off the old colonial line, freeing it for domestic freight. The new northern corridors connect that freight to the largest manufacturing and consumer market on Earth. A country that once needed 60 hours to cross its own length is wiring itself into the global supply chain at high speed. That is the reframe at the heart of the whole program. These railways are not just public transit. They are a national bid to become an unavoidable hub of world manufacturing. Yet the same borderlines reveal Vietnam's deepest tension. Closer rail ties with China mean Chinese loans, and Vietnamese analysts have openly warned about debt traps and growing dependence on Beijing. That fear is exactly why Hanoi insists on funding the giant north-south line itself, with its own bonds and budget, and it pushes so hard for technology transfer from German, Korean, and other partners. The country is trying to take the connectivity without the chains, balance the trade benefits of China against the risk of relying on any single power. So return to where we began, to the narrow colonial track where a train still crawls the length of the country, and to the question the whole project rests on. Can Vietnam build more than 1,000 miles of high-speed rail while forcing the world's giants to hand over their secrets? The answer is not yet written. The deadlines are punishing, the cost is enormous, and the risk of overruns is real, but the ambition is unmistakable. A developing nation that the world has long pictured as slow is now racing to lay a high-speed spine that the United States, for all its wealth, has never managed to complete. If the steel goes down on schedule, the map of Southeast Asia will be redrawn, with Vietnam no longer a link in someone else's supply chain, but a power building its own. That is the duel now unfolding along the bamboo spine of Vietnam. If you want to follow the story as the contracts are signed and the first ground is broken, consider subscribing, and we will keep walking these tracks together.